Slow news day, so I'm going to do something that needs to be done. Let's talk about it. What's up, Wolverines? Welcome back to the channel. I am still under the weather, but I am getting better. I think I will be returning to my live show tomorrow. Not only am I under the weather, but the whole economy is under the weather, and it is a disaster. I have been trying to diversify my retirement just to protect it, and that is why I invested in a Lear Capital Advantage IRA. Lear Capital is the gold standard in precious metals, and this is actual physical gold. This isn't just gold on paper or silver on paper. This is physical gold. And right now you can get up to $15,000 in bonus silver and free shipping on your precious metals. So yes, you can have it shipped directly to your house or to somewhere else. Lear Capital has over $3 billion in trusted transactions and a almost perfect rating on Trustpilot. They are a conservative-based company with American values, and they support shows like mine. You can get your free investor's guide to gold and silver by calling 1-800-741-0551. That's 1-800-741-0551. One more time for all you guys out there, 1-800-741-0551, or you can just check the link in the description. Today, I want to do something that is kind of different, and I want to walk through a case. This case doesn't exist, but I am going to walk it through with you to give you all the legal terms and to enlighten you on how things work. This might help you understand cases going forward, and it is a good overview. Before we get into anything, let's break down a couple of the main types of cases. There is civil cases and criminal cases. There's also bankruptcy and stuff like that, but we're only going to talk about civil cases today. Criminal cases is if you get charged with a crime, you go to criminal court. Civil cases, on the other hand, is things that GOA does, FPC, NRA, SAF do when they sue the government. It's not only that you can sue the government, you can sue people, but in this case, our imaginary case, we're going to be suing the government over some type of anti-gun law. What GOA and FPC and all these other places do is they sue in the district court. There is the Supreme Court, which is over all the land, the whole country. Then you have the country broken into circuits, and the circuit courts oversee that. And the circuits are further broken down into district court. So the first stop for any case is in district court. And in our imaginary case, a new anti-gun law is going to go into effect. Now, our imaginary lawyers have to decide whether to file for a permanent injunction, temporary injunction, and a TRO, or just a permanent injunction and temporary injunction. A TRO is a temporary restraining order. We're going to get into that in a second. But if the law is going into effect a couple months down the road, a permanent and temporary injunction is probably the way you want to go. If the law is already in effect, a TRO, temporary restraining order, is the way to go, along with a permanent injunction and temporary injunction. A temporary restraining order is quicker to get. Usually within a week, you will have a temporary restraining order. So the first step for our imaginary law that is in effect is to file for a temporary restraining order at the same time filing for a permanent and temporary injunction. Okay, so if the judge gives us the TRO, which is great, that's great. The state can always appeal, and we'll get into that in a second. But our imaginary lawyers are going to go for a permanent injunction and temporary injunction. A temporary injunction is exactly what it is. It stops the law from going into effect temporarily until the case is decided. Now, if the case is decided and they find the law is unconstitutional, the judge will enjoin the law, which means he's going to prevent it from going into effect and issue a permanent injunction. A permanent injunction is exactly what it sounds like. It prevents the law from going into effect. So let's say we get the temporary injunction and permanent injunction. What the state is going to do is going to appeal to the circuit court. Now, the circuit court can do a couple of different things. It can decide to hear the case and let the permanent injunction stand, or it can issue a stay. A stay means that the permanent injunction will not go into effect until it's decided on the circuit level. So now our lawyers have to prepare for a case at the circuit level. The first thing that they are going to do is go in front of a 3-judge panel. Now, these judges are picked at random, and this is at the circuit level. So whether it's the 5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, whatever, 9th is in California, for example, that means that the 3-judge panel gets picked from the full bench. The full bench is all the judges at the circuit level. And this 3-judge panel will hear the arguments and issue a decision. If the state or the plaintiffs, whoever, in this case, we're going to say that the plaintiff won and the state is going to appeal to the full bench. If you hear the term en banc, that means the full bench. Now, the full bench does not have to hear the case if they don't want to. They will decide whether to take on the case or not. And if they do take on the case, what happens is that the decision of the panel gets vacated. It's like that decision never happened. And everything, it happens again. It's like a major do-over at the circuit court level. So the state will argue their side, and whoever the plaintiff is, in this case, it is Gun Owners Federation. I don't know. I'm just making it up. They will argue the case. Now, let's say at this level, let's say the state wins. This is something that happens a lot. What the Gun Owners Federation will do is appeal the case to SCOTUS. They will file what is called a writ of certiorari, or also known as a writ of cert, asking the Supreme Court to grant cert. They are petitioning the Supreme Court to hear the case. Now, there's going to be a big delay after this, and what the Supreme Court will do is go into conference. And during the conference, they will look at the case and decide whether they want to hear it or not. They don't have to hear every case. They can punt it down the road or just do nothing or send it back to the circuit level, as we saw what happened after Bruin. But they don't have to hear the case. There is a few things that might force their hand a little bit, but this isn't also not a sure thing. For example, if there is a circuit split, let's say the 6th Circuit ruled in favor of gun owners and the 9th ruled in favor of the state. What you have there is a circuit split. So what is law in one part of the land could be considered unconstitutional in another part. So in that case, the Supreme Court is more likely to accept the case because they want to settle that circuit split. So it kind of forces their hand, but they can still deny it. Now, if that happens and it goes to the Supreme Court, what's going to happen is both sides are going to argue the case. And you're probably going to get a lot of what's called amicus briefs or amicus briefs, depending on where you're from. That is a friend of the court document. And this can be done on any level. This can be done on the district level, the circuit level, or the Supreme Court level. This is when outside groups that have nothing to do with the case originally comes through and they say this is going to affect our members, and they write a amicus brief or amicus brief in favor or against the plaintiffs. So for example, in Bruin, GOA file 1, FPC file 1, SAF file 1, and on the other hand, for the state, you had Everytown filing, Brady, Giffords. They all filed for the state, trying to say that the state should win the Bruin case, when all the pro-gun groups filed amicus briefs saying that the plaintiffs should win. So the justices will go into conference and decide whether they take the case. And let's say they decide to take the case. They argue in front of them. They read all the arguments. There's going to be a bunch of documents filed with the courts, and this is going to say, this is what we think, and this is why we think this. Both sides are going to file these documents, and these briefs are going to have responses to briefs. So the state will file a response to the plaintiff would then refile or another response, and it's going to go back and forth, and they're going to argue. And when they argue in front of the Supreme Court just doesn't sit there and listen. And they don't listen in the circuit court, and they don't just listen in the district court. What they will do is ask questions. Now, you might see a lot of people reading into these questions saying because they asked certain types of questions that they are leaning to vote a certain way. I would caution you, do not fall into that trap. A lot of times that is not the case. So the justices will ask a bunch of questions to both sides. So after the justices are satisfied they got all their questions answered, they will go and form an opinion. Now, not all the judges have to agree on the opinion. There is several different things that could happen. The majority opinion could be the majority all joining together with one opinion, or the majority could decide on the case on different merits. Like 3 judges can decide that the case needs to be settled because of this. Then 2 other judges can agree that the case needs to be settled in favor of the plaintiffs or in favor of the state, but they have different reasons. So they can do different opinions with the same results. So in the end, the plaintiff or the state still wins. It's just 2 different ways of looking at it. Or they can all join in the opinion. There is also something called the dissenting opinion or the dissent, and that is written by the minority in the court. So whoever's in the minority in the court will write a dissenting opinion, and it's usually one person that writes it, and they lay out why they disagree with the majority. But this isn't a jury trial, so it's majority rules. After this, they will issue their opinion, and that will become the law of the land. Right here, the case is virtually done. There is no other place that either side can appeal to. What the justices say is the law of the land. There is a couple different things I really want to caution you on. There is a few things in life that I know. And one is never ever bet on the court system, because they will either disappoint you or surprise you. But you never ever know what a judge is going to do. And no matter how strong your case is, sometimes you will run up against a advocate judge who hates guns for whatever reason and is going to rule against you. That doesn't mean that your case is weak, but that is just something that happens. There is also something called court shopping, where you look for the place where you have the best chance of winning. You have to have standing in that district, and court shopping is kind of frowned upon, but everyone does it. But you look to try to have standing in that district. You look to have someone in that district that has standing, which means they live in that area, whether it's a gun shop or a person or whatnot, and then you sue on their behalf. You fund their case, and they join the case. So John Smith is our plaintiff here. So it will be John Smith and Gun Owners Federation versus, I don't know, the United States government or Garland. It's usually the name of the attorney general. That is why you see a lot of cases change names. Like Duncan versus Becerra became Duncan versus Bonta because Becerra went to Congress and California got a new AG. So cases sometimes will change names, and that is just something to be aware of. It's the same case, it's just a different name. All right, guys, that is it. I hope this is helpful for you. If it is, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know. These shirts right here are down below. You can buy one off of Spreadshirt. I don't know, whatever it is. It's down below. You can just click on it and buy it right there. We also have these really cool magazines for sale, and all money goes to charity. You can email me at info@crumpy.com if you are interested. They're $25. All right, guys, that is it. So stay ever vigilant, stay ever free, keep it in the fight. I am out of here. Wolverines, mother.